Thank you so much, Nicolas Hieronymus, CEO of L'Oréal. It's such a pleasure to interview. I have to say, you don't have to ask me twice to come to Paris to talk about beauty and the economy all in one. So thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a great pleasure to be here, especially with you, Francine.
So there's a lot going on in your world. If you look at the economy, I've always been told there's a lipstick barometer. There's always like an indication of how things are going well or badly and how it translates into beauty sales.
Well, it's true that we talk a lot about this lipstick effect, which says that when times are tough, women buy more lipsticks. And I call that the dopamine effect of beauty, which is a very affordable way to make one feel better, feel good about themselves. And it's true that over history, the beauty market has always grown very steadily. You know, pre-COVID, it was in the 4% every year. We had 3 exceptional years post-COVID. The first one was, the revenge buying, going out, wearing fragrance and lipstick again, partying. And then there were 2 years where the markets were boosted by inflation. Now the market has gone back to its pre-COVID growth, which is in the areas 4 to 5% a year. And it's doing well. It's doing well. And, we've heard about some people mentioning the slowdown of consumption or the market. If I look at the beauty market in units, it's exactly the same rhythm in 2024 as it was in 2023. The only difference is that the price effect has reduced. So this year the market is going to grow around 4.5%. And people, men, women, young, old, love to indulge into beauty.
Are the regions different? So do you see more consumption in North America compared to some of the emerging markets?
Well, there are, I think the whole world is doing great except one part, which has been the driver of growth for many, many years. I'm talking about North Asia and particularly China, where right now, post-COVID, the level of consumer confidence, which is always quite, connected to consumption in beauty as in other categories. So right now, the market in China has not gone back to growth. But the rest is pretty dynamic. Emerging markets, I just come back from India and it's spectacular. There's a great appetite for everything, I must say, in India, but for beauty in particular. So emerging markets have had a great year. Mexico is doing great. Brazil is doing phenomenal. Saudi is doing good. So emerging markets, they are like only 15% of my business, but they are 30% of my growth this year. So really very dynamic. But as you said, Europe has been our number one growth driver this year. Very, very resilient, which is a demonstration that because we hear a lot of gloomy things about Europe and we may talk about it, but as far as beauty is concerned, consumers, whether they're from England, Spain, Italy or France, they are buying into beauty. So great year in Europe where we have been outperforming very significantly the market. And the US is our number one country, doing very well. Again, less inflation effect and overall pretty confident about the US. We think that 25 and the years to come will benefit from local incentives to the overall economy and therefore to consumption. So I'm very ambitious for my US business.
And so what are people buying? You have different price points. You have, of course, different brands that are targeted at different age groups. Has the consumer habits shifted?
Well, it's true that one of the recipes of L'Oréal's success and our capacity to outperform the market is the fact that we do only beauty, but we do all of beauty, which means that we start with products at like €3, very affordable mass market products, to luxury products that reach 300 and 400 euros. So the most luxurious brands like Helena Rubinstein. So you go from Garnier or Cadom in France to Helena Rubinstein. And clearly the luxury part is the part that has slowed down the most because it was a lot driven by China, but it's very resilient in the US. I mean, overall, the fragrance market is extremely dynamic. It's one of the categories that has most accelerated post-COVID. I don't know if it's people couldn't smell anything when they had COVID, and so they indulged.
That's probably part of it, actually.
Yeah, maybe. But fragrance is super dynamic, and we are the worldwide number one in fragrance. Mass market has been quite dynamic, but also there's one particular sector that has really accelerated over the last couple of years, is what we call dermatological beauty, so i.e. creams for sensitive skin, UV protection that are recommended by dermatologists. There's been a clear, a need for trust, and after, again, I think COVID took its toll on people's level of trust, and so the fact that some brands like CeraVe or La Roche-Posay are recommended by dermatologists and actually developed by dermatologists is extremely reassuring. So this has been growing fast. Fragrance has been doing great, and overall, hair care products have exploded. Again, you see two positive impacts. One is the fact that populations are much more racially mixed, and hair with very curly hair needs more treatment than short, thin hair, and also people grow hair longer. So all this has been beneficial. So as you can see, we follow the trends, we follow the habits, and overall, there's always an opportunity for beauty somewhere.
Is there a COVID legacy that people can go to the hairdresser and so did more at home?
Sorry?
Is there a COVID legacy that people...
Yeah, well, it's true that when people were stranded home for months or weeks, they discovered the benefit of indulging. They discovered hair masks, they discovered body creams, and it's true that there are some categories, hair care in particular, that have benefited from this time at home, and people really have started consuming more of these products.
And how difficult is it to find the perfect price point? So, for example, for luxury beauty, what's the soft spot? Given all the economies are actually doing quite well, as you say, but there's many concerns out there.
Well, I don't think there is a given price point. It's about offering the right value for the price you charge. If you overcharge and you do not deliver, people will not buy you again. And again, I was hearing the prior conference, and I wonder what's the relationship or what's common between nuclear and beauty. Well, it's science, and we are a science-driven company. We spend over 1.3 billion euros in research, and so you have to put the money's worth into the price. So what we usually do, and that's why we have 32 international brands. We usually, when our R&D comes up with a new molecule, we put it first in the luxury brands or in the most sophisticated derm brands. Why? Because in the beginning, these molecules are expensive, and as we learn to master the scale of these molecules, we start trickling them down into more affordable brands. So usually, when people buy a luxury product from L'Oréal, they would find their money's worth. I was mentioning Helena Rubinstein. There's a cream here that's the number one face cream in Asia, and it's just a really very, very good cream, and it's the best we have, and it's impossible to put in a mass market product because it's so expensive to manufacture. So in the end, consumers can't be fooled, and I think probably the difference this year between this year and the years, the post-COVID years, where there was this consumption frenzy, is that people are paying more attention to their money. I don't see trading down. I see more attention to the value, and therefore, if you have a great product, and even if you charge a high price, people will go for it. It's an offer-driven market. You have to innovate all the time, and people follow.
What do people want? Is it skincare? Is it makeup, or is it half and half?
Well, the biggest category of the market is skincare, and it's the one, that is the one you use from the day you're a baby. You need, anti-rash creams, and for those who have little babies, you would use a La Roche-Posay cream most likely. Until the day you die, because when you're old, when you're very old, you may be wearing a bit less makeup, but you need a lot of skincare. That's why sometimes I'm asked about whether I'm worried about the aging of the Western population or even the population in China, and for me, it's actually a good news, because people, boomers, as I'm being called by my son, boomers use more products. They have often more purchasing power, and so skincare is the number one category. But then hair care is, of course, hair care is very big because it's used by both men and women. And makeup and fragrance are a bit more. They're big, but they're not as big as the two previous ones because it's more feminine and therefore. But again, that's changing. We see the young generations. We see much more. It's not so much about gender fluidity. It's just about taking care of themselves. I was talking about living longer. Longevity. It's one of the big topics of science nowadays. A lot of people are going to be living in over 100 years. And therefore, what we see today is that from a younger age, from 25, 30 years old, people, men and women, start investing in preserving their capital, their skin, their hair, so that if they live longer, they feel good and look good when they're older. So it's a great potential for my markets.
I mean, there's concern that very young kids, 10, 11, 12, start using products that could be aggressive. Yeah. I mean, whose job is it to make sure that they don't use any harmful things?
Well, I think it's our job. It's the job of the makers. We've taken a stance on. I mean, that trend has been called, and I don't want to pinpoint any retailer, but it has been called the Sephora Kids phenomenon, where you have indeed girls 6, 8 years old that would go to buy anti-aging cream at Sephora and use salicylic acid on their skin, which is very bad. So we issued a statement, and of course, it's not just a statement. We implement it within the company. We do not sell anti-aging product or target kids below 16 years old. The only products we intend to be used for kids are typically products, skincare products for very young age, UV protection products. I mean, we have talked in prior meeting of the importance of UV protection. It's harming the skin. It can cause cancer. So having sunscreen when you're a kid is very important. So we design specific products that are very well tolerated for and by kids, but we do not market and use TikTok and all social networks to try to use to sell products they don't need to kids. We had one of our brands, Kiehl's, did a very nice social campaign showing a young girl with an ice cream. They're saying this is the only cream that kids should use, and I'm very sympathetic to this idea.
How do you see AI evolving? I imagine it's great for you in certain things and actually trying to match color tones or skin tones or things like that. Is it also worrying if some of your campaigns get changed online?
Well, AI, as any new technology, has an infinite opportunities and possibilities. We can elaborate a little bit on that. It's an incredible accelerator for our science. All our R&D people use AI. We take just one example, when we just launched a new molecule that's one of the most, if not the most efficient anti-spot, so anti-age spots molecule called Melazil. We launched it in a La Roche-Posay products this year. I would say 5 years ago, 6 years ago, to screen the molecules, to eliminate, to find the one that will act on the biological markers of spot could take 7, 10, 12 years. Then it's gone down to 2 years with AI, and it could even go down to 6 months. So there's a processing capability, which really augments our scientists. So for that, it's fantastic. It's also a booster of creativity. I see my marketing teams, they're constantly working on creating new ideas, new images using generative AI. But then we have to draw a line. We have to draw limits. For example, we've pledged never to use Gen AI representations of human beings to sell a product. If I'm selling a real products, I don't want to sell it with a fake model. So we do this type of things, and of course there's always the risk of misusage of Gen AI for representations of even having me say something that I don't want to say. So we have to be prepared for that. It's going to be probably there's going to be a few crises generated by AI, but I would say that We have our L'Oréal GPT within L'Oréal. We have 20,000 people that are using it regularly, and it's making also their life at work easier. So there's pros and cons. I see more pros than cons as long as we pay attention.
I mean, this is amazing. So you're basically starting to use it in-house already. Are you going to make your employees more productive? My bosses keep on telling me I'm going to be 20% more productive in 4 or 5 years.
What I can say is that the L'Oréal employees are already pretty productive. They're super engaged and work really hard. So it's probably going to be more about making their life a bit easier and probably freeing some time for mind share, for creativity, to imagine more, but we're also using it for consumers. One of the biggest hassles for consumers, women in the room or men too, is how do you choose your beauty product? There's zillions. We have 32 brands. We are the global leaders. We only have around 15% market share of the beauty market. So there are thousands and hundreds of thousands of products. So if you want to choose your product, it's super difficult. So typically that's where AI and Gen AI can help you. We've presented at this year's CES and now launched in September in the US what we call Beauty Genius, which is like your own beauty advisor in your pocket, in your phone. You take pictures, you scan your face, you dialogue with the AI, and she would recommend you products within the L'Oréal Paris brand. And it's live now. We've had already 100,000 connections or conversations, and people are beginning, and we of course measuring the whether they're happy, and so people get really educated recommendation. And in the end, one of the trends in many areas, many industries, including beauty, is personalization. And I think that in beauty, some people will have and will use products that are made to measure for them, but that's got to be the tip of the iceberg. Most of the people will have recommendations that are made to measure for them, and then therefore if they have the right product, they'll hopefully be happier and be loyal.
But the tip of the iceberg could be actually analyzing your skin and giving you, I guess, a percentage of active ingredients that you need.
Formulating for you. We are actually doing it on the brands like SkinCeuticals with some derms. We have also created something for lipstick. We have with our Yves Saint Laurent beauty brand, we've created a machine that creates in your home the shade of lipstick that every day you want to change your shade, match it to a dress, or you've spotted a star that you want to look like and you want the same color. The machine and the AI can help you get that result. So we're beginning there, but it's small. It's small volumes still, but it's an aspiration. Most people just want to be given the right recommendation.
And does it help with supply chains? So if you move on to like supply chains and inflation, this is one of the things that you said, was certainly the most difficult during COVID and the last, I guess, 3 to 4 years. Does it get any easier from here?
Well, we had two different difficulty post-COVID. One was the availability of raw material, because there's been an explosion of multiple businesses, so it was hard to get what you needed to make your products. And then the prices went up for L'Oréal. The extra cost in raw materials and packaging amounted to over 500 million euros, which we offset partly through price increases, a lot through new products and innovation. We valorize mostly through our new products. I would say things are getting better now, so the price have not gone back to where they were, but at least they've stopped going up. So there are a few blips here and there, but now it's much more stabilized, and both our cost of goods and our service levels are back to normal, but as far as costs, on a higher level than they were before.
I mean, we're talking about possible tariffs coming in from the U.S. Again, question mark, because we don't exactly know what happens. Does that impact your industry, or could it impact your industry?
Well, the first thing that impacts everybody is uncertainty. The uncertainty about what's going to happen. Do we have to believe what's in the tweets? So we have to see what's going to happen. Overall, 80% of the products we sell, over 80% of the products we sell are actually manufactured where we sell them. So in the US. Most of the units we sell are manufactured in the US, also in Canada and Mexico. So if the 25% tariffs are implemented, it will have an impact. Actually, the biggest impact will probably be for the purchasing power of the American consumer. But overall, as long as there's not, a global tariff war is never good for anybody, for the economy, and I hope this doesn't materialize, at least not to a great extent. We are a net exporter from the US, so overall I think we can manage, but if each part of the world starts retaliating, then I don't think it will be good for business, will definitely not be good for consumers. We have pricing power in our brands. But I think, again, in a moment where consumers are paying attention to what they pay, it may be, it is something we have to be careful about. So I think, and I hope that there is more threat there than reality, but we are prepared for it. And I said our industrial footprint is very flexible and mostly localized, so it should not have too big of an impact for us.
I know a couple of years ago, a lot of the focus was on sustainability. Is that changing?
Absolutely not. We need more than ever to focus on sustainability and to act as a leader. L'Oréal has the chance, and I think it's a 115 years old history, to be the leader of the global beauty, and therefore we can't pretend to make people look better, feel better, and not care about making the planet look better and feel better. So we have made many commitments. We have transformed. I think last year, 91% of our sites were carbon neutral. I think we're going to reach 100% this year. We're moving to recycled plastic and recyclable plastic on most of our brands. And by the way, it's easier on some plastics where there is availability, like PET, and it's harder on others where there isn't. And then the questions about collection of used plastic is raised, and it's the role of governments, of states and cities. But we are very, very committed. We're also transforming our ingredients to be more biosource, sustainable, less petrochemical. So we are well on our way. I think we are ahead of many industries, actually, and even within our industry, we are ahead. But as we know, the last mile is the hardest. Scope 3 is the hardest, because even if 100% of my sites are carbon neutral, then my vendors, suppliers, transporters aren't. So have to put pressure on them so that they move in the right direction. And their incentives are very useful. And I think that's one of the areas where Europe can probably change course a little bit, when we see that some other countries, we've seen the IRA in North America, where there's an incentive to invest in sustainability. Europe has been focusing a lot on regulating, pressuring, and threatening to some extent. And it's true that it's creating a very heavy burden on industries that are where Europe is the world champion. And I wish sometimes that we would regulate less and incentivize more. And that's probably where we could probably go even further. Because the worst thing for me is that I have my team spending ages filing reports while my competitors don't care about sustainability. So it has to be a joint effort. And we need, of course, support rather than constraints from Europe.
Is that your biggest worry for European companies, and the US innovates, and as the joke goes, Europe?
Well, not just the US, because Chinese industries in all areas are extremely dynamic. They're investing a lot. They are innovating. They are catching up in some areas, and it's true that they have much less constraints, and their domestic market is quite big. So, they feel less exposed to the pressure of Europe. And I think, yes, we need, I was, since 2017, my business has been directly or indirectly impacted by 850 new regulations from Europe. So some of them are very specific to the beauty industry, some other are more generic, and I think we need more support. I was, I read in the newspaper this morning the launch of IRIS, the new satellite link voted by Brussels That's fantastic. Big investment. My mother used to work at the European Space Agency, so I have a special thing about space. But when I see this, I say, yeah, that's what Europe is. It's a powerful, sum of countries that have intelligence, that have engineers. We have a big market and money, and when we put this money towards innovation, then we can fight with the champions of America or China. When we create more bureaucracy, we're not doing it. So when I see Iris, I think we can work together and making sure that Europe stays ahead of the race also in cosmetics. Out of the top 7 global beauty companies, 5 are European. So we're the champions. Let's make sure we remain the champions.
What do you need to stay champions? Energy policy, more competitiveness?
We are not a very, we're not consuming a lot of energy. I think we need stability, simplification, clarity, and not to be constantly having to reformulate to comply with new rules that are changed 2 or 3 years later. We need just, simple, level playing field apply to everybody, including foreign competitors and foreign companies, and we can work with that. And again, it's good to regulate to make sure companies are transforming themselves. It's good that companies are incentivized in their sustainability transformation, but it has to be manageable, simple enough, and more importantly, it's got to be applied to everybody.
So we spent almost 30 minutes going around the world looking at some of the challenges, opportunities. Are there any new markets in terms of either products, categories, or actually regions that you want to go in?
Well, we started talking about the emerging markets. For me, it's clearly a big opportunity. There's going to be, just in Indonesia and India, 250 million people are going to enter the middle classes by 2030. It's true from Saudi, Latin America. You have populations in the southern hemisphere who are young, very digitalized. They are now shopping on e-commerce. They're using our virtual try-ons. And so these are masses of consumers. And by the way, men are very much indulging into beauty in these parts of the world. So this is, for me, a big growth driver. This is the part of the world where our market share is the lowest, because prior to that, they did not have access both financially and physically to our products. Now they have. So for us, it's a fantastic opportunity to grab. We already have strong presence and we are leading in a couple of markets, but we are far from our fair share. So for me, it's a big, big opportunity. And again, these countries are full of inspiration, because maybe that's something that, if I look at the global trend, in a world that's fragmenting, we have to find always the right balance between being global and local. And beauty is highly cultural. Therefore, when you're in India, you can sell your global brands, but when doing so, you have to adapt them to the local climate, to the local, routines, or even typically when we do big event for Diwali in India, and they're created locally by our local teams. We have local labs that adapt to the local needs, and I think that's the right in a world that is probably a bit less global. Leveraging the scale of being a global company and at the same time acknowledging and adapting to the local specificities, I think is the winning recipe, and that's where L'Oréal, I think, is very well poised to be successful in the future.
Nicolas Hieronymus, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francine.